Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of our tutorial on creating characters from scratch in CrazyTalk Animator 2. As you may recall, in the last tutorial we worked mainly in Photoshop, cutting out the different parts of our teddy bear. And in this tutorial here, we're going to actually import those into CrazyTalk Animator 2. So first of all, we need a dummy actor. So I'm going to go over to the Actor tab here in the Character folder. I'm going to go ahead and select my dummy character, bring him into the scene here. Now the sole purpose of this guy's existence is actually to be replaced. So we're going to actually go to the Character Composer here, and we're going to gradually replace all of the sprites on his body. Now the first thing we want to do though is we want to actually go ahead and delete all of those parts. To do that, we can go to the Scene Manager, and you can see that we have all the different body parts if we select them on the model here. And I want to delete each one of these when he's in his 0-degree profile. So if I select them and I press the delete button, we can just go ahead and delete like the torso, for example. And I can delete the upper arm. And each one of these parts, if I delete them when they are in bone transform mode, as a side note here, is when the selection box is highlighted in blue. That means you're transforming the bones of the character. When the selection box is green, which you'll see in just a moment, that means you're only adjusting the individual sprites. So we're going to go ahead and keep on deleting all the parts of his body. You can see he's gradually disappearing. And those are his hips. It's important for CrazyTalk Animator 2 characters to have hips as well, which we already created for our teddy bear, as you may recall, in the previous tutorial. So I'm just going to finish deleting all of these parts right here, and then we'll get to the face and the hands. Now with the face, our imported character, the teddy bear, is not going to have any facial sprites, so we don't really have to worry about any of that stuff. Whoops, we need to select the neck here. And then we go to the Face tab and delete all these. Like I was mentioning, the teddy bear, he doesn't have any facial sprites. He's going to be using morph-based facial expression, so we don't need to bother replacing any of the facial sprites. We can just go ahead and delete all of those. Again, select his ears. He's gradually becoming invisible here. And eyebrows. And then we'll delete that big nose in his mouth there. So you can see it's really easy to click and select from these dummy images on the right hand side here. And then we're good to go. And then we only have a couple hands, so we'll just go ahead and delete those hands. And then we'll move over to the right hand, delete that. And there we go. So now all we have is this basic naked skeleton right here. Maybe a little bit hard to see, so you can actually change the color here. Let's maybe change it to a blue here so it's a little bit easier to see on our screen. And so we have this skeleton here. If I go to all of the different angle profiles, like 45 degrees, 90 degrees, you can see that there is no sprites on any of those angles. So what we need to do right now is we need to go about replacing all of those sprites that we deleted. So to do that, we need to actually go into our sprite editor. So let's select the hips first, and let's go into our sprite editor right here. So when we open the sprite editor, you can also use the S hotkey. We have an empty slot here. Now we can create a new sprite. And let's go ahead and use the hips right here and press OK. Now I was going to ask, do you want to apply this image to all undefined angles? We only want to define it, we only want to apply it to the 0-degree angle right now. So for all of these, we're going to select no. And it's only going to apply to the 0-degree angle. Now if we zoom in a little bit closer, you'll see that the pivot point for the hips is right in the middle, which is exactly where we want it. So we're not going to bother changing anything right there. Let's go ahead and in our Scene Manager select the chest. And then go to the sprite editor rather, not the script editor, and create a new sprite. And we're going to use our upper torso right there. And again, we'll select no for this. And you can see that one imports in. It's a little bit low though because we want the upper torso. We want it to be rotating, the bottom part to be rotating kind of along this pivot point right here. So let's kind of just try and place it a little bit higher up there. That should be about good right there. And try and center it as much as possible, maybe a little bit further over right here. There we go, try and make that as centered as possible, right through the heart there. Okay, and then we have that taken care of. Now we can go ahead and import in the shoulders. So let's select our Scene Manager, select our shoulders. And what I want to do is create new sprites for the shoulders. This one would be the right arm. So let's go over to the hands and legs. We'll go to right arm right here. Open that up. And again, no for this one. And then we can go and select the lower arm and create a new sprite for that. And the hand or the lower arm, whatever you want to call it. and import that in. No again for this. Now you can see that there's something wrong with the positioning of these sprites. So what I want to do first is I want to close down the sprite editor. I want to select my shoulder or my upper arm sprite right here and move it out just so we can all see it. And then I'll just move my camera over here a little bit. So you can see what we need to do is we need to rotate these sprites properly. So again, let's go into the sprite editor. You can press the S hotkey, and the sprite editor, you'll see that the selection box turns green. So that means the sprite is being edited and not the bones. The bones are the blue part here. The sprite is now being edited, and I can move that around, and the bones will not be adjusted at all. So what I want to do is kind of just move it into position there. Do the same thing for the lower arm right there. And it's important to pay attention to where your pivot points are on your individual bones. Now, the pivot point for the upper arm is right here on the top there. So we kind of want to have a little circle area around that top pivot point right there. Just so when we do rotate the bone, that the sprite will rotate along with it, and there won't be any kind of points jutting out or anything like that. And I'll talk more about that later. And now for the bottom part of the arm here, you can see that if we go into bone selection mode here, I want to move this up. If I move this down like that, basically this is exactly what we want here. The arms are a little bit longer. The arms for this teddy are a little bit longer than the conventional arms. So we want to move this bone down a little bit. We want this pivot point right here again to be right in the center of this end area of the upper arm right there. And we want this other pivot point for the hand to be exactly where it is. It doesn't really matter where the hand is. But let's go ahead and back into sprite editing mode here once we have it selected. So I want this kind of circle area to be the pivot point for both of my arm points right here. So you can see there, if I connect them right there, that works out quite well. And what I can do is go into bone transform mode with the blue selection box, and I can rotate the arm, and you can see that the rotation result for that is quite nice. We get a nice, that'll be indicate the arm kind of moving around within CrazyTalk Animator. So we'll do that. The same thing with the left arm right here. We can, let's just Control Z that. We want to need to replace the sprite for the left arm here. Select that and press S. Go into the sprite editor, and we'll just open up the right arm, or sorry, this will be the left arm. Go ahead and open that up, and then we select the lower arm right here, and go and add in our left hand, and no again, and then we can go into transform mode again. We need to bring these out just so we can see them a little bit better, and then we need to go back into sprite editing mode, and we want to position them correctly just as we did with the other side. So again, make sure that little circle area, just create an imaginary circle area around that pivot point right there. And we'll do the same thing for the lower arm right here. Make sure that's selected, bring that down. Now you can see kind of why we rounded out the edges of the arms there, so they can kind of rotate properly. Now what I want to do is kind of just put that right about there, and let's go ahead and go back into bone transform mode, and we want to bring it down a little bit, maybe to about there. And then you can test it out by rotating it again, maybe a little bit further down. There we go. So that's the kind of rotation result we want. And then you can take the shoulders and you can bring them back to a reasonable position somewhere on your character. That should be fine right about there. There we go. And that looks good. Since this teddy bear is fairly rotund, fairly fat, we might want to bring those shoulders out quite a bit there. And then we'll go about replacing all the other sprites as well. So again, go into the scene manager. We can select our upper leg on this side, and we'll replace the sprites. So we'll go into our sprite editor again and create a new one, and then we'll go to our legs folder, and it'll be our left thigh, and open that up. Nope. And just bring that into position, roughly into the position we want it to be in. Again, have that rotation point right around the pivot point there, and do the same thing with the lower leg here. Lower leg would be shank left. Okay, and go ahead, and that position looks about to be okay, but you want to maybe make sure it's on the pivot point first, and just place it right there, and then we'll go down and select the foot and do the same thing for the foot, and that'll be foot left right there. And nope, we'll just place that foot kind of right where that pivot point is, and we'll adjust the pivot points later, just like we did with the arms. So let's go ahead and do the same thing quickly for the right legs, or for the right leg, only a single leg, and just bring that thigh in right there. Again, that should be good right about there, and then we want to go to the calf right here, or the shank, and import in the right shank. There we go. And you can see here that there's a little bit of an issue. The shorts are kind of popping through the calf. Now that's actually a joint mask issue, which we'll deal with next, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But first of all, let's finish replacing the foot, and then we'll replace finally the character's head. We'll give him his head back. And so let's import in that foot, make sure the rotation point is around the joint area. And finally, let's get on to the character's head. So Sprite Editor, and we'll go to the head folder, face and body, and bring in his face right there. Alright, there we go. So now what I can do is I can just bring that, since I'm in sprite editing mode, bring that up to about here. And that's going to be the rotation point for my character's head right there. So that'll be a good rotation point. Now that we have all the sprites replaced, we can actually go out of sprite editor mode, and I want to get these sprites into position. Let's bring that thigh a little bit over this way, and this one will bring it a little bit over that way. There we go, that works out quite well. And I want to bring those knees up a little bit to kind of rotate, and we can test that out. That looks okay. Bring this knee up to about there, and that should be okay once the masking is fixed. And again, the feet, we'll just make the feet put the feet properly right there. There you go. He has weird shaped feet, but he is a teddy bear after all. And there we go. Alright, so now we've replaced all of our sprites. We'll test the head one really quickly first. There you go. That looks good enough. So now that we've replaced all of our sprites, we need to work on finally the joint masking. So the joint mask tab is right over here on the right of the scene manager. So if I select the joint mask, this is basically where certain little areas where CrazyTalk will define which layers are going to appear where during your animation. So these are very important to define properly if you want the correct animation results without the layers going all whack. So let's go ahead and do the neck one first for the character. We can kind of just, he has a fairly thick and wide neck, so we can kind of just make that joint mask to about here. And then for the upper arm, we want to make the upper arm just, let's zoom in a little bit here first on our character so we can see a little bit better. And let's just move this shoulder joint mask, move it to about there. And we need to make this one a little bit bigger, a lot bigger actually. That should be about there. We don't want it to cut into the head too much, but we do want it to cover most of the shoulder area right there. And do the same thing for the other one here. And just bring that over, joint mask, and just kind of expand it. Like I mentioned, try not to get it so that it covers the head. And that should be okay right there. And then we'll do the same thing for the elbows. Elbows are fairly easy. Just kind of cover that joint area as much as you can. Give it a lot of space around that joint area. But as a general rule, the joint mask should be centered around. We don't actually have a hand, so we don't have to worry about that one. The joint mask should be centered around the pivot points, like I mentioned here. So we'll just kind of expand that a little bit. And the hips are going to be important as well. You want the hips to kind of cover most of the upper torso. And so we'll just kind of expand that one to about there. And then the thighs, we will expand the thighs to cover that thigh area right there. That should be good. And I'll show you these what these joint masks actually do in a little bit. We actually have a tutorial on the Runtime Composer, which shows you how to fix any joint mask issues you have. We'll do a little bit in this tutorial, but that's a more in-depth look at how you can fix an animation with a new character that you've created. So with this one, we have the ankle joint. Let's just bring it over there. That's a little bit large. And finally, on the right knee here, you can see that if I move this joint mask around, now you can kind of see exactly what it does. If I have this, since this joint mask is for the knee, if I have it too low, then this area around the pivot point is kind of going to show in the wrong layer order. So what I want to do is kind of, like I mentioned, center that joint mask around that pivot point. Keep it fairly large because our character is fairly strangely proportioned. We don't want to have any issues later on. And just expand that. It's better too large than too small, to be honest. Another thing you'll want to do is set the default layer levels for your character as well. So we just did that joint mask on the knee. Let's go back to that. And you can see that now if I move that joint mask away, you'll see what happens. Now, what if I take if I go back into the body section here and I select this say my thigh, for example, and I want to move the thigh to the front. So if I go up here to send to front, and if I do that, you'll see that it won't really affect much. It'll just go back to it'll send to the front of the torso here. So let's go send it to back again. And what I want to do first is go up to Edit, and I want to deselect Affected by 3D Motion. So what that will do is that will make sure that your character's layers are in the right level without any animation being applied to it. The character was previously in a T-pose, but now there's no 3D motion affected settings on. So let's take a look at the other knee as well, the joint mask on the other knee. Let's go over to here and just move that out of the way, and you can see that works just fine. If I go to body and I take this knee, for example, and I just kind of bring it to the top, you'll see that it'll actually now go in front of this thigh right here. So if we leave it like that, if we go back to our joint mask and move the joint mask back into place, you'll see that it'll actually not have an effect. So what you really want to do is you want to make sure that you go back to your layers here. You want to make sure that your shin here or your calf is behind the thigh, because the thigh has a clothing on it. Basically, any character with clothing, you always want that clothing to be on top. Obviously, there's no clothing behind your skin, so you want it to be on top of the calf there. So we'll just keep it that way. Let's go put that joint mask back in place, and there we should be good to go. And we can go edit and click on Affected by 3D Motion again, and let's go and move that second joint mask back into place there. Almost forgot about that one. And there we go. We finished all of the joint masks right there. So now our Teddy is complete. Now what I need to do is a couple more things. The first thing I need to do is, because this character is only a single angle profile right now, if you only have a single angle, like a front-facing angle, you can actually use a feature in CrazyTalk Animator which will make it compatible with multiple angles. And to do this, you need to go up to Modify, and you need to select Turn into Multi-Angle Character. So what this will do is CrazyTalk Animator will try and calculate automatically the sprites that you're using, and it'll actually scale those sprites and adjust the bones, the bone transforms a little bit to kind of create a multi-angle character. So it'll adjust all of these things, and we'll just go ahead and press OK, and that'll take a second to process. And now take a look at when I move my character to different angles. Previously we only had this 0-degree angle. Now we have all of these separate angles. This is 90 degrees, or sorry, rather 270 degrees. Now, of course, this character won't have a correct 90-degree profile because it only has a single-facing body and feet. But as far as all the other angles go, especially 45 and 315, those ones will normally be okay. Maybe with a little bit of masking, they can be better, but we can always work on that later. And then what you want to do is go to Modify and Confirm Multi-Angle Settings. You can also use this button over here on the left-hand toolbar. And what this will say, this will recalculate the sprite layers and joint masks at all of their actor angles based on your front settings. So our front settings should be okay, so we just don't have to worry about that. And it's recommended you have prior multi-angle sprite definition before using this function, which we have already defined with CrazyTalk's automatic settings. And it says you can still add sprites from other angles. in the Runtime Composer, which we'll talk about later. So let's go ahead and press OK, and now we've confirmed all of our multi-angle settings. Make sure you do this step, otherwise your character won't export properly. And you can see refresh complete, and blah blah blah. You can check the calibration results if you want. So we'll go ahead and press OK, and we go into our little calibration area right here. We can go ahead and select upper. You can see now the upper is kind of calibrating. Don't worry about the layers. Worry more about the movement. We can always fix the layer issues later. That's mostly just masking. You can see the lower here. You can see that there's some obvious masking issues that we need to work out here. But that really depends on each individual motion. We should be okay for right now. So what I want to do is close down the calibration panel right here, and we want to go back to our stage. And so now our once naked dude is now a cute little teddy bear. Now you may notice a few immediate issues right here. The first one being that the masking, the joint mask for my neck isn't large enough, and the joint mask for this knee is a little bit off. So what we can do now is use the Runtime Composer. Like I mentioned, we have a tutorial on this. You can check that out. But I'll show you a couple of quick fixes here. So in the Runtime Composer, this is just like the Character Composer, except you don't have to go back and forth through different modes. We're going to go to Joint Mask here, and you can see exactly where the joint mask is and how much larger we need to make it. Just to cut out that part right there, center it more around that joint, and there we go. We're good to go for that. Let's move up to the neck right here, or rather the head, and we need to expand that a little bit as well, make that a little bit larger. And there we go. Those are the two glaring issues that came up immediately after export. And so we're good to go. And let's try and apply some animations to the character now. So we'll go to the Content Manager, and let's go to Animation, and let's go to Motion. And in my Motion folder, I want to select, let's try a 3D motion. Let's try and select a idle first. Let's try this idle angry here. So I'm going to select the idle angry, and you can see my character's kind of stomping around there. But you saw there's a few kind of layer issues. Layers are going back and forth at different times. So we don't want that to be happening. Let's go ahead and try and fix that first of all. Now the layer issues, let's take a look right here. This could be a joint issue right here. So let's go back to our Runtime Composer, or sorry, joint masking issue. And you can see that the joint mask right here, it's kind of cutting off the edge of the upper arm there. And also the joint mask here for the upper arm, we can maybe expand that a little bit over here. So it's a little bit too long. Maybe we can rotate that and kind of just stretch it out like that. And that should be good right there. And then for the head one, let's try and maybe bring that up a little bit. We don't want to be taking too much of the head area there, or of the arm area there. And that should probably work out a little bit better. Let's go ahead and, okay, so that looks okay. So then maybe this area, this arm has the same issue with the upper arm right there. We need to just kind of get to that right frame there. And let's do the joint masking for the upper arm right there. Maybe just rotate that, stretch it out. And there we have a better looking arm right there. And let's just go through the whole thing here. And here you can see the shoulders going above the head. Now for this animation, we want the head to be at the top the whole time. So what I can do is just go back to frame 1. And let's go into our timeline by pressing F3. And what I'm going to do is just open the 2D motion track. And you can see we have a layer track right here. Now let's zoom in on my character's face here. Where is the point? Let's try and find that point where his arm is going in front of his head, right about there. So if you go any time before that, actually, we can just go back to frame 1. And let's go into our layer editor here. And with the layer editor, I want to select my head. And I want to make sure my head is always sending to the front of, I think it was that right shoulder that was appearing above. And you can see now that now the head will always be above the left shoulder, but not the right shoulder. So right here is okay. But then right here, you can see it pops up in front of the face right there. So what I want to do, just to show you, maybe right here before he pops in front of the, before it pops in front of his face at frame 53 here, go to frame 52, and we can press the head, send the head to the front of the right shoulder. and then we should no longer have this issue. And you see that adds a little keyframe in the layer track right there as well. So then we have the head always in front of the shoulder, which is the way it should be. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first few frames. He's angry. Angry little bear. Now I think if I recall there was a problem with the legs right here. Yeah, you can see there's a little kind of a leg issue. Let's make sure the legs are okay the whole time. There's a couple of leg issues. So the first one is we need to fix this joint masking. So let's close down our timeline for now. Select our character. Make sure we're out of the layer editor here. Have our character selected in the Runtime Composer. Let's take a look at that joint mask there. We can make that a little bit larger since his legs are fairly thick. This guy's has not been dieting for a while. He's got some fairly large legs. That should work okay. Let's play that back. And maybe at points like this, where this kind of lower leg is kind of popping, or sorry, rather the thigh is popping above the torso here. Let's take a look at that. You can see that that's not really a joint mask issue right there. So what we can do is, for characters like this where they're you know, pretty fat, to be honest, their stomachs are normally sticking out. We can normally have their stomachs in front of their thighs no matter what. So let's go back to frame 1. Let's go to the Runtime Composer. Let's go into our layer editor right here and select our characters. We can select the torso, and we can make sure the torso is always in front of the thigh, and make sure the torso is always in front of that thigh as well. And let us try and play that back and see if that fixed the problem. There you can see that now we no longer have that those thighs popping in front of the torso, and that looks just fine. So that's basically how you can do that. This is the angry idle. You know, I just fixed a couple of problems right there. If you want as well, maybe this character, his arms are a little bit close to his body. Since he does have a fairly a wide body, you may want to, after you apply the animation, you can either use 2D or 3D motion key editing. I'll just go ahead and use the 2D motion key editor right here, and just take his arms and kind of just at the first frame, kind of move those arms out a little bit, since they have to kind of conform to his body shape. And maybe just move this one out as well, something like that. And let's take a look at, there you go. Maybe it's even a little bit too much. Just bring those a little bit further in. But that's basically how you deal with, you know, each individual character will have a different body shape. So you'll have to do different modifications for each character, and all that stuff. Let's try one more animation here. We'll go to the Content Manager, and let's try maybe Idle Impatience. This one's very similar to the Angry Idle. You have the Idle Angry up there, and then the Idle Impatient. You can try this one. You can see now he's kind of just waiting like that. And you can see, like I mentioned, that now since we applied a new animation, that thigh is still in front of the stomach right there. So let's go ahead and, again, we can go back to frame 1. And it's just a little issue, but it is very noticeable. If you take a closer look, we can go to our layer editor, torso in front of thigh, and that issue disappears. So we just repeated the same issue right there. And if we wanted this, you know, front arm to be in front of the, like kind of on the front of the stomach instead of behind, we can do that as well. So we just select hand in front of the torso, and we have to have the hand in front of the waist as well. And of course we'll have the hand in front of the thigh, I guess, since the hand seems to be very far back. If we wanted to do that, we can do that as well. So take a look at how the animation changes once the layers are adjusted. You know, it's just a quick little animation, and we had that torso in front of the thigh one more time. There we go. And there we go. So that's basically, you know, just fool around with the layers, fool around with the joint masking, and normally you'll be able to fix any type of animation. We can also maybe take this character with this idle animation. Let's go out of the layer editor here, and maybe just switch it over to a different angle, slightly different angle, like this one right here. For this angle, this is a 45-degree angle, so you can just see that kind of his hand is kind of behind his thigh right here. So if we selected the layer editor again, we want to have the hand in front of the, I think that's the thigh. Yep, there we go. And then for this one, we'd probably want to have this left hand, behind the torso right there. And so you can do the same thing with different angles right there. And if we press F3, go into the timeline, have our character selected here. Let's go to the 2D motion editor here. And this is a 3D motion. We can just kind of loop this over and over again. We'll have our bear impatiently waiting at a 45-degree angle. You can see that what CrazyTalk did is it automatically scaled this 1 foot larger. This foot is scaled smaller and closer behind. So now we can just play back, kind of just patiently waiting right there. And finally, if you want to save your character, we go to close down the layer editor here. We'll go to the Content Manager and Actor tab and Custom folder right here, and at the Character folder, and we just go ahead and once our character is selected, select Add down here, and we can just call this guy Teddy Bear. Whoops, Teddy Bear right there, and we can import the same Teddy in right after that, and there you go. So we have the same Teddy right there. And you can apply different animations to him. You can apply as many teddy bears as you want. You can make an army of teddy bears from your single creation. And so that's basically it. That's how easy it is to kind of import a character with different parts from Photoshop into CrazyTalk Animator, apply animations to it, and make sure that those animations look good by adjusting your Runtime Composer, joint masks, and the different layer order of your character. So hopefully you learned something in this tutorial, and thanks a lot for watching.